There's 4 things that have super high amounts of microplastics that you probably had no idea about. Hey, my name is Beatrice. I'm the anti-plastic lady, and I just don't want you eating lots of microplastics. Microplastics are small pieces of plastic that will actually come off and you end up ingesting them. And microplastics have been shown to cross the blood-brain barrier, which can lead to accelerated neurodegeneration, which basically means things like Alzheimer's and Parkinsons. On top of that, microplastics have also been shown to disrupt your gut microbiome, and it also has been shown to have a Trojan horse effect, which means that it's going to carry other toxic chemicals with it along the way. Number 1, your plastic cutting board. A study was just released last month showing that your polyethylene cutting board can potentially give you about 51 grams of microplastics every single year. And microplastics were actually released more when you were cutting with a vegetable than just chopping alone, which is one reason scientists think that they never actually figured this out, because they were always doing it in unrealistic situations. But 50 grams of microplastics is about 10 credit cards worth extra of plastic that you end up ingesting annually. Now, one really easy way of avoiding this is just using a wood cutting board. Bamboo isn't technically a wood, so use something like cedar or acacia wood is really great, maple and oak, and wood also has natural antimicrobial properties as well. It's actually been shown in studies to harbor less bacteria than plastics. Number 2, your seaweed. Specifically one that would come on your sushi actually has a lot of plastic, because all of this just comes from the vast amount of pollution from plastic in our water. Seaweeds ends up absorbing everything from the water around it, and so that's why it ends up absorbing a lot of microplastics, and then you end up eating it with your sushi. And seafood is also a really big source of microplastics, and that brings us to number 3, clams and mussels, right? So bivalved seafood. Fish has a lot of microplastics. Now, all fish does, but the problem is that most of the times when we're eating fish, we're removing their gastrointestinal tract. But when it comes to clams and mussels, is that we're not removing their gastrointestinal tract, and so we end up eating basically all the plastic that they also eat. Plastics have this thing which is called the Trojan horse effect, where they basically end up absorbing all the different bacteria and chemicals that are around it. Plastic that's found in the ocean can be really, really toxic because it has all these industrial chemicals that get dumped in it, and then you end up eating it. It has also been shown to harbor a lot of bacteria. And number 4, your dust. Everything that you have that's plastic in your house, clothes are plastic, and those will kind of degrade a little bit over time. Plastic will leach off in small little ways when you brush up against it or with UV sunlight, and the plastic will actually get into your dust. You end up ingesting that merely because it either comes up, you breathe it in, it'll get on your skin and you absorb it that way, or it ends up put it on your hands and then you actually end up eating it because it's something on your hands. Easy way of solving this is literally just by vacuuming a lot. If you have a vacuum that has a HEPA air filter, that's even better. If you don't, not a big deal, because just by trying to eliminate dust in your house or by taking your shoes off at the front door. And then the last one is salt. Salt is a really huge source of microplastics, again, because our oceans are really, really contaminated with plastic pollution. Salt that was in a place that had plastic manufacturing had much higher chemical amounts of microplastics in the salt itself. American salt actually was found to be very low in microplastics, which is awesome, but any salt that came from Asia, not so good. And amounts of microplastics in the salt from England as well. France actually showed to have very low amounts of microplastics, but they also found that some of the terrestrial salts had high amounts of microplastics as well, just from the ways that they were mining it. In this case, getting an American sea salt was actually a really good way of avoiding microplastics in your salt.